The phone rang in the darkness. At 4:04 a.m., a tired man picked it up. "Dad, please, I need help," came a shaky female voice, then silence. He glanced around his empty room, grabbed his jacket, and drove out into the pouring rain. At the end of a deserted alley, he saw a car with a flat tire. Inside, a young woman sat, panicking. "You called me? I thought you were calling Dad," he smiled softly. "Looks like the universe rerouted your call." Little did she know that this night would change their lives forever. Jack Rowan was 38, a single father, a night shift driver for roadside assistance. But he had once been a military engineer, smart, experienced, and respected. That was before his wife left, before he became the only parent his 9-year-old daughter, Lila, knew. His life was simple now. Wake up, make breakfast, drive Lila to school, sleep a few hours, pick her up, help her with her homework, put her to bed, and then drive around town in the darkest hours, helping strangers in trouble. Lila always told him the same thing before bed. "Dad, helping people is your superpower." He smiled and kissed her forehead. "Then maybe a superhero who drives a tow truck." She giggled every time he glanced at the dashboard. He kept his helmet, an old one from his military days, covered in stickers, one of which read, "Lila's father." She'd put it there herself. He never took it off. Isabella Voss was 28 years old, the heiress to the Voss Group, one of the country's largest financial empires. Her face appeared in magazines. Her name opened doors. Her bank account had more zeros than most people could count, but none of them felt like her own. It all belonged to her father, Richard Voss, a man who built empires but never learned how to connect with his daughter. Her mother died when Isabella was 12. After that, her father threw himself into his work, and Isabella became another asset, another piece on his chessboard. Tonight, she ran away. There was an engagement party, a grand one, held at the boss's estate. Champagne, classical music, a man she barely knew standing next to her, smiling as if he had already won. Her father had arranged it all, a merger disguised as a marriage. "It's good for the company," he had said. "You'll understand." On a day when she didn't want to understand, she slipped out of the car unnoticed, got in, and drove off without a plan or a goal, just gone. An hour later, a heavy, blinding rain began. The tires were old. She was going to replace them, but when you grow up with people who take care of everything, you forget how to handle things on your own. There was a loud bang, and the car swerved. She stopped, her hands shaking. She sat in the dark with the rain pounding the roof and realized she didn't know what to do. So she called the only person she thought could take care of her, her father. But her fingers were shaking, the screen was wet, and she dialed the wrong number. Jack was parked at the gas station when the call came. He almost ignored it. Unknown number, late hour, probably a prank, but something in the voice stopped him. "Dad, please, I need help." Young, scared, real. He sat up. "Hello, are you okay?" The connection went dead. He stared at the screen. He tried to call back, but there was no answer. Most people would have just shrugged. "Wrong number, not my problem." But Jack wasn't like most people. He thought about Lila. He thought of all the nights he'd prayed for someone to help her if she ever needed help. He wasn't there, so he checked the call log, opened the location tracker in his dispatch system, found the closest signal for that number, and drove through the rain, through empty streets, until he saw a car on the side of the road with its hazard lights flashing dimly. He pulled up behind it, grabbed his helmet, and approached. A young woman sat inside, soaking wet and shivering. He tapped the window. She looked up. "You called me," he said. "Subscribe so you don't miss what happens when a wrong number changes 2 lives." She slowly rolled down the window. Her eyes were red, her mascara smudged, her hair damp from the rain. "You called me," Jack said again, trying to sound calm. She blinked, confused. "I thought I called my dad." He glanced at the flat tire, then back at her. "Well, I'm not him, but I'm here, and this tire isn't going to fix itself." She paused, then nodded. He went to work immediately. No questions, no judgment, just action. The rain had died down to a drizzle, but the ground was wet. His knees dug into the mud as he loosened the bolts. She stood a few steps away, her arms wrapped around herself, watching. "You shouldn't have come," she said quietly. "It was a mistake." He looked up and smiled. "Good thing I'm wrong too," she almost laughed. He worked quickly and efficiently, like a man who had done something 1,000 times before. After tightening the last bolt, he stood and wiped his hands on his jeans. All done, he said. But you should check the tires soon. This spare one won't last long. Thank you, she said. Her voice became quieter and more even. That's when he noticed her hand and the cut on her palm. It's small, but it's bleeding. You're hurt, he said. She looked down. Oh, I must have cut myself on something when I was leaving. He came back. He went to his truck and returned with a first aid kit. I'll take a look. She hesitated again, but something about him made her feel safe, so she held out her hand. He carefully cleaned the wound and wrapped it with gauze. His hands were rough but gentle. Do you do this often? She asked. Fixing cars or helping people? Both. He smiled. It's part of being a father and working with onions. You have children, a daughter, Lila. She's 9. She's probably dreaming about dragons and homework right now. Isabella smiled for the first time that night, a real smile. She's lucky, Isabella said, to have someone who's always there for her. Jack finished bandaging her arm. I think we all need someone who's always there for her. The rain started again, harder this time. You should wait, he said. It's not safe to drive in this weather. She looked at the sky, then at him. He nodded toward his truck. Not gorgeous, but dry. They climbed into the cab of his truck. Rain pounded the roof. He pulled a thermos from under the seat and poured coffee into the lid. Not fresh, he said, but warm. She took it, wrapped both arms around it. Thank you. They sat in silence for a moment, a comfortable silence, and then she spoke. Why are you doing this? Helping strangers at 2 in the morning? He leaned back and thought. Because someone helped me once when I needed it most. It was a guy I never saw again. I had just gotten out of the military, lost my job, didn't know where to go. My wife had left. I was sitting in my car outside the grocery store, trying to figure out how to feed my daughter, and some guy knocked on my window, gave me $50, told me to pass it on when I could, and then walked away. Isabella looked at him. Did you find him? No, but I found 100 other people who needed help, so I decided that was enough. She looked down at her coffee cup. My mother used to say something like that. She said the universe always sends the right person at the right time. You just have to pay attention. Sounds like a smart woman. And she was. Isabella's voice cracked. She died when I was 12. After that, my dad stopped being a dad. He became the CEO, and I became a board member. Jack looked at her intently. That's why you ran away tonight. She nodded. He's marrying me off to some businessman I barely know. He says it's good. To the company. I'm like a contract, not a person. Jack exhaled slowly. It's wrong. No, it's wrong. She looked at him, but no one seemed to care. I care. The words hung in the air. Just honestly. She felt something break in her chest. Not from pain, but from relief. Why? She whispered. You don't even know me. He shrugged. No need. You asked for help, and I believe that people who ask for help deserve it. No questions, no strings attached. She felt tears sting her eyes. She blinked them away. They sat there until the rain let up, until the sky began to lighten a little. When it was safe to drive, she stood by her car. He's already back in his truck. Wait, she shouted. He rolled down the window. Can I have your number, just in case? I need help again, he smiled, but shook his head. That was the wrong call, remember? But if you need help, you find me, or I'll find you. That's how it works. Then he drove away. She stood there in the rain alone, but somehow she didn't feel lonely anymore. 2 days passed. Jack had returned to his routine. Lila, school, work, sleep, and so on. But something was different. He kept thinking about the woman in the rain, her eyes, the way she held her coffee cup as if it were the only warmth in her world. He wondered if she was okay, if she got home safely, if she'd stood up to her father. But he didn't have her number, and she didn't have his. It's probably for the best, he told himself. People like her don't stay in the lives of people like him. On Tuesday afternoon, his phone vibrated. A new work order. VIP client. Full vehicle inspection and maintenance. Address, 2247, Lakewood Estate Drive. He raised an eyebrow. Lakewood Estate was the wealthy part of town, a gated community, old money. He'd been there once or twice. Rich people with expensive cars, they hardly drove. Easy work, good tips. He'd take it. He loaded up his tools and told Lila he'd be there. Home for dinner, and off they went. The estate had massive stone gates and a fountain in the driveway, the kind of place that could have stepped out of a movie. The butler opened the door. Or rather, the butler. Jack almost laughed. Mr. Rowan, the man asked. It's me, come this way. Jack followed him down a marble hallway. Paintings covered the walls, chandeliers overhead. He felt out of place in his work boots and oil-stained jacket. They reached the garage. 3 cars, all spotless, all worth more than his annual salary. You'll have a client soon, the butler said, and left. Jack set down the toolbox and waited. Footsteps sounded in the hallway. He turned and froze. Isabella was standing in the doorway. Her hair was pulled back. She was wearing a simple sweater and jeans, but her eyes, those eyes. She, too, froze for a moment. Neither of them said a word. Then she smiled slowly, warmly, a little shyly, so she said quietly, "It wasn't a bad shot after all." Jack blinked, and then laughed, a genuinely surprised laugh. "You arranged this?" she asked. "I told you that if I needed help, I would find you, or you would. I didn't think you meant that. I'm full of surprises." He shook his head, still smiling. "You could have just asked for my number. You said no, remember?" "Fair point." They stood there, the tension giving way to something lighter, something simple. Jack said, nodding at the cars. "Which one needs repair?" "None of them." He raised an eyebrow. "Then why am I here?" She paused, then said, "Because I wanted to see you again, and I didn't know how else to do it." His heart did something strange, something he hadn't felt in years. "Isabella, I know it's strange, but I can't stop thinking about that night, about what you said about coming over, and I realized that no one ever just came to me without wanting something." Jack put down the wrench. "I don't want anything. I know. That's why I wanted to see you again." She invited him inside, offered him coffee, real coffee, not from a thermos this time. They were sitting in her living room, with huge windows overlooking the garden. "Everything is perfect. Everything is cold." "Is this where you live?" he asked. "Is this where I exist?" She corrected him. He understood. They talked about everything, nothing. She asked about Lila. He told her stories. She laughed. She laughed genuinely, and then fell silent. "Jack, I need to tell you something." He leaned forward. "What happened that night? The night I called you. I wasn't just running away from a party." "What do you mean?" "My father. He didn't just arrange this engagement. He hired people to make sure I did it." Jack's jaw clenched. "What kind of people? Security guards? I don't know what else to call them. After I left the party, I thought I was free, but they followed me. I saw the headlights. That's why I panicked. That's why I stopped." Jack felt something cold settle in his chest. "And then what?" "Then you showed up, and they were gone." He looked at her. "They just left." She nodded. "I guess they didn't expect anyone to stop, especially someone like you, who looked like she could take care of herself." Jack exhaled slowly. "Isabella, this isn't right. This." "I know," her voice trembled. "I know, but what can I do? He controls everything. My money, my life, the company. If I fight him, I lose everything." "But you stay yourself," Jack said firmly. She looked at him, her eyes shining. "You make it sound so simple." "It's simple. Not easy, but simple." She wiped her eyes. "I don't know if I'm strong enough. You called for help at 2 in the morning. You ran away from a life you didn't want. You found me because you wanted to see me again." He leaned closer. "You're stronger than you think." She smiled through her tears. "Do you really believe that?" "I know." The voice interrupted the moment. How touching. They both turned around. A man stood in the doorway. Tall, gray hair, an expensive suit, cold eyes. Richard Voss. Isabella quickly stood up. "Father." He ignored all of it. His gaze was fixed on Jack. "Who is this?" Jack stood too calmly. "Jack Rowan. I'm here to service cars." Richard's lips curled into something that wasn't quite a smile. "Is that what we call it now?" "Dad, stop it." "Sit down." "Isabella." "No." Richard's eyes narrowed. "Sorry. I said no." Her voice trembled, but she didn't sit. Richard turned. Jack's attention was drawn back to him. He looked him over from head to toe. "Military background, working class, single father, I'm guessing?" Jack didn't flinch. "That explains it. And you think you belong here?" "I don't think I belong anywhere. But your daughter asked me to come, so I came." "My daughter," Richard said slowly. "She doesn't know what she wants." "I think she does," Jack said evenly. "I think no one was listening to her." The room fell silent. Richard stepped closer. His voice dropped. "It's dangerous. My daughter doesn't need a mechanic." Jack met his gaze, not looking away. Maybe she just needed someone. Isabella felt something inside her burst forth. Courage, fury, freedom. She stepped between them. "Enough." Her father looked at her in surprise. I'm done, Dad. I'm done pretending. I'm done being your pawn. I'm done living the life you've created. Isabella, no, you can talk now. You can listen now. Richard's jaw clenched. I'm leaving the company. I'm starting my own foundation, and I'm going to help people, real people, not board members, not investors. Jack looked at her proudly, silently, ready to support her if needed. Richard's face flushed. You're going to lose everything. Isabella smiled. No, Dad, I'm finally going to have something. Richard Voss looked at his daughter silently, deliberately, then turned and walked out. No goodbye, no argument, just the sound of expensive shoes on the marble floor. Isabella stood there, breathing heavily, her hands shaking. Jack walked up to her, didn't touch her, just stood there and said, Are you okay? He asked quietly. She nodded, then shook her head and burst into a wild, relieved laugh. I have no idea. It's a start. 3 months later, the building was a small, renovated warehouse on the east side of town. Nothing special, but it was her building. A sign over the door read, Wrong Call Foundation. Someone always shows up. Isabella stood outside, looking at it, still not believing it was true. Jack pulled up in his truck. Lila jumped out of the passenger seat. Miss Bella, she called, running up. Isabella hugged her and picked her up. Hey, little dragon. Lila giggled. Did you see how Dad helped paint the sign? Yes, it's perfect. Jack walked over, his hands in his pockets. She insisted on adding glitter to the letters. I had to talk her into it. I wanted it to be glitter. Lila said seriously. Yes, glitter. Isabella said. Because you helped. Lila beamed. Inside, organized chaos reigned. Phones, computers, maps on the walls, a team of 5 setting up their stations. Isabella had used her trust fund, the one her mother left her, the one her father couldn't touch. She had built something real. The fund works simply. Women in danger can call any time of day or night. Someone will always answer. Someone will always come. Jack led the response team. 3 drivers, all ex-military, all people who understood what it meant to be ready for tomorrow. Jack asked, Tomorrow's the official launch? The press? The donors? Is all that nerve-wracking? Isabella admitted, You'll do great. She looked at him. I couldn't have done it without you. Yes, you could have. You just didn't have to, she smiled. Lila tugged at Isabella's sleeve. Miss Bella can do it. Of course, I'll tell you something. Lila leaned closer and whispered loudly. I'm glad you called us. Dad needed a friend, too. Isabella felt her breath catch in her throat. She looked at Jack. He was smiling, a soft, quiet smile. Me too, Isabella whispered back. I'm so glad you called. Lila hugged her tightly again, a hug that said, You're part of us now. That evening, after Lila had fallen asleep on the office couch, Jack and Isabella stood outside. The lights of the city spread out before them. She loves you, you know, Jack said. Lila, she talks about you all the time. Isabella's eyes watered. I love her too. I love what we're building. Jack nodded. It's good work. They stood in comfortable silence. Then Isabella said, I got a letter from Dad today. Jack looked at her. Yes, he's officially cutting me out of the will. No. How do you feel about that? She considered it, then smiled freely. Jack smiled. Too well. He also said he's watching me, waiting for me to fail. Then perhaps we better not fail. We won't. She looked at him truly. This man who showed up, Rain, who remained, who believed in her when no one else did. Thank you. Jack, for what? For answering the wrong call? He shook his head. It wasn't the wrong call. It was absolutely the right thing. A year later, the Wrong Call Foundation had expanded to 3 branches. Its 24-hour hotline had helped over 200 women. Isabella stood at the podium. A small crowd had gathered. Donors, volunteers, press, and in the front row, Jack and Lila. A year ago, Isabella began, I called. I was scared, alone, and I dialed the wrong number. She smiled, or at least it seemed that way. Laughter rippled through the crowd. The man who answered that phone didn't know me. He had no reason to help. He could have ignored the call and gone back to sleep, but he didn't. He showed up in the rain in the middle of the night and changed my life. Her voice trembled. She pulled herself together. He taught me something that night. The importance of being there, that being there for someone, even a stranger, can change everything. And that's what this foundation is built on. The belief that no one should have to experience their darkest moment alone. She looked directly at Jack. So what about the man who answered? My bad choice. Thank you for coming, for staying, for believing that I was worth driving that far. Jack smiled quietly, proudly. Lila whispered loudly, That's my dad. The crowd laughed. Isabella finished her speech. The ribbon was cut. Photos were taken later when the crowd thinned. The three of them stood in front of the building. The sun was setting, and golden light filled everything. What do you think Mom would say? Lila asked, looking at her father. Jack looked at Isabella, then at his daughter. I think she would say we're doing exactly what we're supposed to do. Lila nodded with satisfaction. Isabella knelt down, looking at Lila. You know what, little dragon? What's your dad's superpower? It's real, and now it helps a lot of people, Lila chuckled. I told him. Isabella laughed, hugging her. Jack watched them. His daughter, his friend, his team, his family. He thought about that night, about the rain, about the call, about the moment he decided to ride out into the storm. Some would call it luck, some would call it fate. He called it exactly what it was. Sometimes the wrong choice is precisely the reason to start over. You never know who. On the other end of the line, you never know what one decision can change. So if someone calls, if someone needs help, come, because the universe doesn't make mistakes, it just finds the best ways to connect us. The camera pulls back. The building glows warmly against the evening sky. Jack, Isabella, and Lila walk inside together. Above them, a sign reads, Someone will always come, and they do. Subscribe if you believe fate always dials the right number.